Hey, it's Chelsea. Thank you so much for being here. So, we are moving towards a big shift of energy December 20th when Jupiter re enters the sign of Aries. Jupiter first entered Aries back in May 10th, earlier this year. So, think back to what might have been going on in your life at that time, because these are themes and cycles that we are going to be returning to and exploring at a much deeper, more expansive level. So I have a few charts pulled up, kind of tracking this journey that Jupiter has been on as it first left the sign of Pisces and moved into Aries. And then once it began to retrograde back into the sign of Pisces, and will be moving again into the sign of Aries. So if you're following along on YouTube, I'm going to share my screen with you so that you can take a look at the charts with me. Okay, so first of all, let's talk a little bit about Jupiter. Jupiter is known as the great benefic. It brings blessings, expansion, abundance, opportunities, wisdom. I kind of look at Jupiter as a wise sage, and it acts like a magnifying glass or a quartz crystal and really amplifies the energies of whatever house or whatever sign it's moving through, as well as whatever planets it's interacting with. So Jupiter is more commonly known for really beautiful, positive things, but it's important to remember that because Jupiter does expand energy, that it can also amplify the lower expressions of signs or of other planets. So just keep that in mind. But yeah, so think back to whatever was going on in your life back earlier this year, May 10th, because as Jupiter moves back into the sign of Aries, these are energies and themes that we are going to be revisiting. So take note of wherever 0 degrees of Aries is in your chart. And also, yeah, just be mindful of whatever house that is in your chart, and also whatever planets might be around or interacting with Jupiter. So, all right. So as I had mentioned, Jupiter entered the sign of Aries back in May 10th, and it stayed there until about, I think it was 8 degrees and 43 minutes of Aries, right where Venus is in this chart. And it retrograded back into Pisces October 28th. And it's going to be returning back into Aries December 20th, where it will stay until May 16th of 2023 when it moves into the sign of Taurus. So already what we can see happening is this back and forth energy. And the back and forth energy is happening between the final sign of the chart, Pisces, and the initiator, the beginning sign of the zodiac, Aries. So already we can sense that there is this big energy of completing cycles and finishing things out, but then also starting new, but then also having to go back to complete things a little bit further when we can finally move forward and initiate again. So I think it's important to take a look at what was going on in this chart when Jupiter first ingressed into the sign of Aries, to really get a deeper understanding of what lessons and themes Jupiter is teaching us throughout this back and forth through Aries and back into Pisces and back into Aries again. So first of all, let's take a look at what was going on with Jupiter here at 0 degrees of Aries. So there's a lot of sextiles going on in this chart. So Jupiter at 0 degrees sextiling Mercury. And then it was also coming off of a sextile with Pluto. And so sextiles, they are aspects that they're harmonious aspects, and they can lead to activations, but in order for the activation to occur, it is important to take some sort of risk to really move out of our comfort zone and do something different and new. And so with Jupiter coming off of this sextile with Pluto, you can see like Pluto is transforming something here, especially because this final decan of Pisces, where Neptune currently was, or where Neptune was, and where Jupiter was moving out of, that is ruled by Scorpio. And so there's this alchemical transformation that is happening in this area of the chart as Jupiter is moving back and forth. And then with this sextile going on over here with Mercury and Gemini, Mercury is retrograde. And they're both retrograde. So it's interesting, Pluto and Mercury are both retrograde. So that tells us that this is a theme, this is an energy that we were going to be moving back to, so that we can really understand these lessons and really integrate whatever it was that we were learning. And so with Mercury and Gemini, there's something going on in the mind. And then, so it's like this activation that is occurring with whatever is going on in our minds, and also whatever was cleared away or noticed within our subconscious mind as Jupiter was in Pisces, or our dreams, and then understanding how we can take action towards whatever it is that we want to create and have in our lives that sustains our life. That's a longer lasting energy. That would be this Pluto and Capricorn being a longer lasting energy. So what was going on was really figuring out ways to take inspired action, but then also like the longer lasting follow through. So something else that we had going on in this chart at the time of Jupiter moving into Aries, and I think that this was a really crucial transit aspect that was taking place, and that was Saturn in Aquarius that was creating a T-square with the North Node in Taurus and the South Node in Scorpio. So it's like there was this interesting, like Saturn was creating this bridge, this foundation, this belief system that was just creating this bridge between the South Node, our subconscious mind or our past, with the North Node being our conscious mind, what we were moving towards. And I mean, Saturn, like, I don't know how time was moving for you back earlier in the year at this phase, but I remember time being really strange back then, because Saturn is like the timekeeper. And so with this tense aspect between the past and the future and the inner and the outer, it was like a melting, especially with all of this Pisces, like Neptune and Mars and Pisces. There was like this, like time was melting, or timelines were just like merging, like so many different timelines, so many different potentials, all like a train station, just all meeting in one place. And it was like we had all of these options, like which timeline, which reality do we want to move into? So Neptune and Pluto were sextiling, and then also Neptune and Mars were sextiling the North Node. So they were trining the South Node. So again, there was like this interesting, just this merging of timelines taking place, but also like this risk that needed to happen in order to move into a new energy. And we were really being supported by this trine that was happening with the South Node, because trines they are harmonious and they are Jupiterian in nature. They're expansive. And I want to say it was also allowing us to pour compassion into the areas of ourselves that just needed compassion or needed forgiveness in order for us to really move forward into this completely new territory that we were moving into. So also something that I think is important to take note of is that Jupiter stationed retrograde right where Venus is in Aries here. It was like 8 degrees and 43 minutes. So we could round up to 9 degrees right where Venus is here. And so July 28th, that's where Jupiter was when it stationed retrograde and started moving back into the sign of Pisces. And so it's also important to note that Jupiter will finally leave this retrograde area February 14th, 2023. So that's when we're really going to start experiencing the forward momentum that Jupiter in Aries can bring. Because Jupiter in Aries, like, it does want to start something new. It's excited to move towards something new and expand in a new way, in a way that just it hasn't experienced before. It just wants to experience newness, new expressions, new experience. Yeah, new ways of expressing our energy. Now, let's take a look at Jupiter returning to Pisces. And that was October 28th, just a couple months ago. And that was a few days after that solar eclipse that we had at 2 degrees of Scorpio. So we have Jupiter over here at 29 degrees of Pisces, the anaretic degree, the final degree of the entire zodiac. And so it's just so interesting how Jupiter, when it entered into Aries, was moving into something new, was excited to start something new. But then we're thinking, like, hold on, that wasn't sustainable. And there are certain things that just need to be kind of like moved around and manipulated in order to just cleared away in order to move back and take action, inspired action, move into those new experiences in ways that are sustainable. And so I think that's interesting, also tying Saturn back to that bridge that it was creating between the North Node and the South Node. It's really creating those bridges in order to create solid foundations and structures, because Saturn, it does want to create for the long term. It's a sustainable energy, and it does involve taking patience and or having patience. And I think that is definitely something that we were learning here, especially because Jupiter in the sign of Aries, there could very well have been an energy of impatience and just feeling like things could not start fast enough. But it was like when we were jumping into things too fast was possibly when we were realizing, like, oh, okay, that's not sustainable. I've got to retrace some steps here. So think back to whatever might have been going on in your life at the end of October 2028, just a couple months ago. And I think it's interesting to note that because it was right, this was happening in between the eclipse cycles, coming right off of that solar eclipse in Scorpio. And so eclipses are longer lasting energies, and their effects ripple out into time, lasting even up to 6 months or so, or even longer sometimes, depending on what's going on in the chart. So whatever we were working through at that time likely is going to be a longer process, or something that will be lasting into next year, into 2023. So yeah, reflect back to whatever was going on in your life at the end of October during eclipse season. And also take note of wherever 29 degrees of Pisces is within your chart. Take note of the house, of whatever planets might be nearby or interacting with Jupiter at that time. So what was going on in the chart at this time? Well, this was when we had the Mars-Neptune square going on. So Mars was right at 25 degrees of Gemini, where it was at 25 degrees of Gemini where it began stationing retrograde. And that was Friday, or that would have been October 30th. So so Jupiter was kind of moving towards this conversation that was happening between Mars and Neptune. And so this was definitely kind of stopping us in our tracks and making us look around and just really trying to make sense of things, because that can be a more challenging aspect of Pisces, And especially with Neptune and Jupiter in their home sign of Pisces, like that is some serious Neptunian, flowy, dreamy, elusive, maybe even deceptive or manipulative energy that was going on. And so also it's important to take note. Oh, sorry, I was covering up the Pisces there. But so it's important to note that Jupiter and Neptune in the sign of Pisces, like that was a big deal because the last time Jupiter and Neptune were together in Pisces in their home sign, that was in 1856. And the next time they're going to be in Pisces together is in 2188. So this is really a once in a lifetime transit that was taking place. And I think it just really amplifies the importance or like the fated experiences that were going on at that time. But also, I think it really just shows that there was lifetimes of karma being cleared away at that time. Or I mean, we're still moving through it because Jupiter is it's in Pisces still. This Mars Neptune square was really showing us, kind of forcing us to lose track of the logical mind or of trying to figure things out, trying to make sense of things with our mind, and really sensing and understanding what was going on around us, what was going on in our lives at a deeper level, so that these energies can just be fully purged and completed, and we can close out that cycle without having to bring baggage with us or without having to return back to it at some point because we didn't fully complete whatever needed to be completed or released or purged at this time. So also it's important to take note at where Neptune and Jupiter were in Pisces. This is the final decan of Pisces, and it is ruled by Scorpio. So then we take a look, and we've got this sextile going on with Pluto, really showing us that there is this alchemical transformation, this deep-rooted alchemical process that is occurring at such a deep level. And we can look in our own lives and notice that it's taking place, but we can also look at the world around us and see that just so much is being completed and ended and just released and purged. But there's also this big energy because Jupiter, it's like our beliefs and really like the truth. And so really understanding the truth, like having a deeper perspective of this reality and even of ourselves. So also what was going on at this time was we had Pluto and Mercury in a tense square, really bringing friction to the mind and to just what needed to be released and cleared out in the mind. It's just important to note and important to really take advantage of these final days of Jupiter in the sign of Pisces, because this is a once in a lifetime transit. And this is something that we are never going to experience in our lives again. And the more like the higher expression of Pisces and of the rulers, Jupiter and Neptune in Pisces, would be compassion, like pouring compassion into ourselves or into others. And because I had mentioned like this clearing up of karma that even transcends lifetimes, one of the easiest ways to clear karma is through forgiveness. Well, I don't want to say that's easy, but a really powerful way to work through karma is through forgiveness, because that is, I mean, when we don't forgive, we're holding on to these dense feelings or energies that get stored in our body, they get stored in our organs. They create disharmony in our body, in our reality. They affect us at a deep cellular level, and they really keep us trapped in the past. These stagnant, heavy emotions that we hold on to from experiences of trauma or pain or feeling of being abandoned, or, you know, those like real core traumas that we experience, when we allow them to stay in our body, when we store them, and when we hold on to them, they really do keep us trapped in the past and prevent us from moving forward. So it is so important. And how do we acknowledge where those traumas, like how do we acknowledge if we have them within us? We pay attention to how we feel and whatever it is that we're experiencing in the present moment. So we just take note of how we feel ourselves reacting to things or whatever might trigger us. Take note of that, because our triggers can very well point us towards whatever it is that needs to be cleared. And I think it's just such a powerful time to really allow ourselves to be aware of whatever triggers or traumas we notice that we are still working through, because we can really clear them right now. Like the chart, the astrology, the stars are really supporting us in, this profound shift that we are able to make in our lives. Okay. And so also, though, I do want to say one more thing about this chart was that we were working through the final Saturn-Uranus square. And this was an energy that we were working with for nearly 2 years, since it began at the beginning of 2021. And so again, this is really completing cycles. And again, like we're seeing this bridge of the past Saturn, because we can kind of look at Saturn as like a past energy, and then Uranus, the future, like this bridge, this friction, this understanding is being created. And Uranus really came through to rock those foundations, to just shatter whatever realities we might have experienced or we might have been living in, whatever truth we believed, whatever limitations we had binding us to the past, so that we can move towards the future in an empowered way. Because Uranus, it doesn't bring this chaos and shatter experiences. It doesn't bring its lightning strikes into our lives just to create destruction. It does it to create innovation, because it does want to move us towards the future. It wants to assist us in wherever it is that we are going. And so, if there are, like I had mentioned, this is going to be a longer lasting energy, because it happened right during the eclipse season. It happened between the solar eclipse in Scorpio and the lunar eclipse in Taurus. And so this is something that is going to last into the spring of 2023. And so if there are things that are coming into your life and just like being cleared away so fast, or like things that you thought were stable and secure, just being taken. I say taken because it's like, is anything ever really ours to begin with anyway? But also, like, nothing is ever truly lost. It's just changing form. And so I think it's really important to be open and receptive to the changes and the transformation that is taking place. And just whenever you are experiencing these phases of just like difficulty, because there is going to be a lot of change that we're moving into, especially as so many of these larger outer planets are going to be changing signs in 2023. I think a lot of what we might experience at first in 2023 is this challenge of moving into new things, because it's just uncomfortable sometimes to change and to move into new things, especially if you have a lot of fixed energies in your chart. Then you are going to want to like kind of, the fixed signs, sometimes they don't change until they absolutely have to. And that's when things can just be so uncomfortable. But remembering that things are changing or things are being cleared from your life in order to get you into the path or into the future in a way that you might not have accelerated into the future if these things that were still binding you to the past, like if they weren't being cleared. So now let's take a look at what we are moving into in the next week or 10 days or so, when Jupiter returns to Aries. So again, take note of whatever might have been going on in your life back in May. this year. So, Pluto in Capricorn at 27 degrees in a sextile. Jupiter is coming off of that sextile with Pluto, and it's coming off of that alchemical transformation that has been going on. And there's still going to be like cycles ending and completions occurring because Neptune still is in that final decan of Pisces. And so, but that's also, I feel like, going to be just allowing us to really dream of these new experiences that Jupiter is moving into, because these planets are all having conversations, and Neptune's kind of like, all right, Jupiter, I'll see you again in a couple hundred years back at home in Pisces. And it's kind of sending Jupiter off with all of these lessons, because Jupiter is just receiving them all and just excited to share its experiences and its lessons and its blessings as we are moving towards just completely new things in the sign of Aries. And I really want to say it's just going to be offering us so much inspired action, but something that is so important when we are feeling, because inspired action, it's really interesting when you kind of take note of what you're thinking. Like, let's say, for instance, you've been wanting to do something completely new and you think about it all of the time, but maybe you have to buy something in order to do whatever this is, like this new hobby or whatever that you're thinking. Maybe you have to buy something, but you think about it all the time and you're like, oh, I should do that. But then you're like, oh, but I need to buy that. So if you're having these thoughts a lot and you're not taking action on it, like, that is inspired action going to waste. Like, whenever our heart is pulling us towards something, and again, like Jupiter, going back to when Venus was at where Jupiter stationed retrograde in Aries, like our heart pulling us towards something that we want to experience, like it's important to allow ourselves to follow through with that, allow ourselves to take inspired action so that we are able to just move into new territory and experience new things. And it makes me think of like how, like, graveyards, like, dreams go to die. Don't let your dreams die. Allow yourself to materialize them. Allow yourself to take action towards them. And so, yeah, just really taking inspired action and kind of creating something in the exterior that was that this interior experience of this Pisces transit allowed us to experience, creating that bridge, that merge between whatever was going on in the inner world and materializing it in the outer world. I think is a really important thing to do as Jupiter is moving into the sign of Aries. But I think also it's important to be aware of burnout and to be cautious of our energy, because Jupiter is just going to want to be like moving forward so quick. Like, finally, we've got some sort of forward momentum. Like, Mars is still retrograde in Gemini until January 12th. And so it's like still going to be kind of hard to move forward in some ways. And then it's going to, once it goes forward, it's going to be in a square with Neptune again. And but at least we've got Jupiter now helping us move forward. And I think that that's kind of a really beautiful handoff, because Mars, the ruler of Aries, is still moving retrograde, but then Jupiter is going to be just assisting and lending a boost of just action oriented energy and really assisting Mars through that the final moments of its retrograde. And so then we've also got what's going on December 20th is we've got this square happening. So the sun is moving towards a square with Jupiter. But so that's going to be kind of, because I mean, Capricorn is a sustained energy and Aries is a quick, like, wanting to just get out and do it kind of energy. I think it's going to be important for us to remember the lessons that we've learned and allow ourselves to do whatever is needed to create longer lasting, sustainable foundations. Mars is in an exact sextile with Chiron, and they're both retrograde. And so there are lessons here of, yeah, taking action and kind of looking back. And what I had mentioned about inspired action, like if we feel like we aren't taking action in some ways, really taking note of what it is that's going on within ourselves that might be holding us back from moving into new things that we want to experience, or from initiating. So we've got these planets over here in Capricorn that are in a harmonious trine with, so that would be Mercury and Venus in a trine with Uranus and the North nodes. They're also in a sextile with the South node over here. Welcomed opportunities. And again, this is something that I've kind of been seeing a lot recently, but I'm seeing it happen so much in my life and those around me, is the importance of remembering when one door closes, many more will open. And I think overall, when you really kind of like summarize this energy of this experience that Jupiter has been going through, it is having to close doors and be accepting of that and understanding, and also remembering that some of these doors that are closing, like likely that they needed to close, and they're closing out karmic cycles that may have transcended lifetimes. And when these doors are closing, more are going to open because we're clearing space. We're opening ourselves up if we allow ourselves to be open-hearted, and if we aren't closing ourselves off because of the trauma or pain that we might still be holding on to. That's why it's so important to allow ourselves to clear out those heavier, denser energies, because like I said, they're tying us to the past and they're preventing us from opening ourselves up to new opportunities. They're completely covering our eyes so that we might not even see the opportunities or blessings that are trying to come into our lives. And also something that I've been seeing happening a lot, which I think is kind of beautiful. And because there is this merge, this connection happening between Pisces and Aries and these different areas of the chart, is that like you could have something end in one area of your life, but then a completely unexpected new blessing occurs in a different area of your life. Like, let's say that you got fired from your job, or like you had to leave a job, but then something new, like a completely new blessing comes into your life, like in the area of like relationships or something like that, like, or you lose a relationship, but then you get more opportunities coming into your life for new jobs or something that's really important to you. And so that's why right now is just so important to be open and be accepting, because when we allow ourselves to be receiving of Jupiter's blessings, and we're really doing this work of closing out all of these old cycles, that's when we're going to receive the blessings. And then also tying back to the bridge that Saturn was creating with the North Node and the South Node, it is a longer lasting, sustaining energy that is being created if we allow it to. So I think on that note, that's about everything that I wanted to say. I appreciate you so much for being here. Thank you. I really appreciate you being on this journey with me, and just understanding ourselves at a deeper level. I think so much of this expansion that we are experiencing in the world, so much of it has to do with the expansion that is happening within ourselves. And I mean, whatever's going on in our inner world is going to be reflective in the collective and in the outer world. And the more of us that are aware of what's going on in our inner world and that do want to evolve and just be better, more improved versions of ourselves, the more of us that are doing this inner work, the more we're going to start to notice and experience and see these shifts on that in the external reality and in the collective. And so I think that's just really beautiful. So yes. So thank you so much for being here, and until next time.